Hello, this is Ari from Modern Telecom, here to talk to you about your new GXV3350 phones by Grandstream. Alright, these are phones that are based on an Android tablet, so they'll look familiar to you if you are a tablet user, especially from the Android, similar to the iPads as well. So it is very heavily reliant on its touchscreen to manipulate the menus and move things around. You can of course reorient your icons and resort your applications this way. There is also on this phone a physical dial pad and a couple of buttons that I'll review with you right now. So first of all, you'll recognize these from Android tablets if you've used them before. This is a home button. The home button will return you to this page. This screen right here is all the function buttons that you would normally find on a phone. So these function buttons include the speed dials to everybody in the building, and they will change color to indicate to you if other people are using their phones. So for example, if I'll pick up one of the phones and watch up here this extension. There, so now it's gone red to indicate that that particular person's phone is in use. And now it's gone green once I've hung up that phone. So you're able to use this screen to kind of get a snapshot of what's going on with the other extensions in the building. When you tap these extensions, you're also able to dial them directly. So for example, if I tap this button, it immediately dials another phone. You can use the green accept button on the screen to answer the phone, or picking up the receiver, of course. I'm not going to be demonstrating a lot with the receiver because it's easier for me to demonstrate with speakerphone. But of course, picking up the receiver is what you would do to answer a call, and hanging up the receiver could be to end a call. Now you also have a button down here, which is just a picture of a handset. This would be equivalent to the send button that you might find on a cell phone. So after, for example, you've dialed your phone number, and if it's taken you a while to download the phone number and maybe you've made some mistakes, you can't actually backspace and go back. It hasn't sent the number yet until you either wait for a long pause or hit this dial button.
You've reached Modern Telecom. Thanks for calling.
So unlike an analog phone where when you've started dialing the number, it's immediately sent those digits and you would have to hang up if you made a mistake. With these phones, you can edit the number while you're dialing it. It's not actually sent, or the call is not completed until you hit the send button. Very much like a cell phone. You may have seen that when I've been hanging up on calls, I've been tapping this red end button to hang up on the call, and the same effect would happen as if you were hanging up the phone. It would also end the call. So how I got back to that other screen, because here we've got this springboard with all the extensions, and flipping over to this side gives us a weather report with a clock. And further moving to the right brings us to some extra applications which you won't really be using these much, so I shoved them way over to the right. But the most important ones down here are, this one is another send button, so similar to this. There's multiple ways of doing things with these types of phones because they are based on computers, and as you know with computers, there's never just one way to do things. There's lots of different ways you can get to what you're trying to do, so you'll find that this button is duplicated on the screen here. This one here is a directory, which can be used to search other people in the building which are not on this list. Whoops. Got to be careful touching the screen. So in here, you can add your own contacts into the directory, or down here where it says LDAP, you can then click up there and type any letter for somebody. Let's say you wanted to know what extension was the daycare, so you could press D, and then getting rid of the keyboard could be this return button. And now you've got all the people in the buildings that have the letter D in their name. You can find the person or the phone that you wanted to call. I'm not sure if this is coming through clear here. I'll zoom in a bit so you can see the screen. There we go. Okay. And you could now, that's how I've dialed that. I'm just going to review answering calls and placing those calls on hold, and then transferring those calls. Those are kind of the main important things we want to make sure we've covered. So I'm going to place a couple of calls to this phone. Try and zoom out a bit so you can also see what buttons I push. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to dial into extension 21. I'm going to answer this call. And now I want to transfer this call to somebody else in the building. So there's an actual physical transfer button down here. It's kind of a picture of a phone with an arrow to another phone. So this is your transfer button. So I can push this button. And now it's basically brought up a list of the last couple of people I called or received calls from. So if you do see them on this list, you can grab it. It's like your recent calls list. This one here that says MPK, I think it stands for multi keys or something. But pushing this brings up all the programmable keys. Oh, this must be what the P stands for. Multiple programmable keys. Anyway, so here you've got all the main people in the building, and it'll indicate with a red dot if they're busy or a green dot if they're available. So let's say I want to take the call that I'm on right now, and I want to send it over to extension 31. So I just have to actually tap that button, and it's left that phone, and it's being sent to the other phone now. So I can answer it from here, and now I've successfully transferred that call. And just to review that process again, I'll transfer it back. So I'll hit that transfer button, which is the one that was kind of hidden down there. And then I'll hit this feature key button, the multi-feature. MPK, here we go, click that. And then I'll send this back to extension 21. Now let's suppose it was somebody whose extension was not on this list. You could just key in the extension from the number pad, like 21, if you don't see them on this list. But since this person is on the list, I'll tap it, and it's left that phone and moved its way over to this phone, where I can now answer it from that phone. Now I'll give you another scenario, is holding and parking a call. So instead of transferring the call, if the person at the destination that you're wanting to send the call to, perhaps they're not at their desk, or you want to call them first to make sure they're there, or perhaps it's going to take them about 5 minutes before they get back to their office to be able to take the call, then the appropriate thing to do would be to park the call, which is similar to a hold, except on this system, when you hold a call, the call is held only privately for your phone only. So let's demonstrate. If I push this hold button right here, it's telling me that it's holding on the screen of the phone. And on the other person's, the caller, just to give you an example, the caller will hear hold music. Nobody else in the building can retrieve this call. It's private just for you. So when you come back, you would take them off hold, and then you can continue your conversation with them. So this is not really, holding is not really what you would use if you were trying to place the call into a situation where somebody else could retrieve it. So to get it so somebody else can retrieve this call, like I used the example before, what we would do is we would hold the call. Actually, sorry, we can transfer the call directly into a parking spot. So I'm going to show you where that transfer key is again, down here. And I'm going to bring up my feature multi-buttons, and I'm going to look for a parking spot. So here are these icons. I'll zoom in again so you can see them. And there's a couple of them there, Park 1, 102, 103, 104. And the reason why we have several of these is because there could be scenarios where other people in the office are utilizing parking spots at the same time. So we want to make sure you have enough places to stick people. So what we'll do is we'll put this person into the Park 101. We know nobody's in there and it's available because it does have a green dot next to it. If it was in use, it would be flashing red. So I'll transfer that call into there. And now you can see that icon has changed and it's blinking red. Throughout the building, on all the other phones in the building, it will be in sync and synchronized. So if I go to this phone over here, we can see that it's also flashing red to let everybody in the building know, if they glance at their phones, that there is somebody parked there. even different model phones. So if I flip over to a different model phone over here, we've got a flashing call up there on the red. So we know that this person is parked, and to retrieve that person from any phone in the building, you just need to tap that parking spot. So you could use this as an opportunity to perhaps make a call to that person, see if they're available, see if they can take that call, track them down in the building, and then when they get to any phone in the building, they can go and they can tap that parking spot button, and they'll then retrieve that call. So that is a way of transferring a call from one phone to another where there's going to be a long delay between that transfer process. I'll demonstrate it one more time, and I'll just basically show you both phones at the same time while I park and move the call to the other phone. So I'll return this phone to the home screen there. I will go transfer, keys, parking. I'll then go to the next phone and I'll push the parking button. And now I've retrieved that call. Now let's suppose we're in a call and a second call were to come in at the same time. So this is going to be a demonstration of what call waiting would do. So I'm going to call into this extension. And as we can see on the screen here, we've got an option saying that there's another call coming in. So it's giving me the choice, do I want to accept it or reject it? If I say accept, now I've taken, well, we've got echo because I've got another phone here. I'm going to take the receiver off the hook. Okay, so I've taken this other call. So I've got two calls going, and the way I know that I've got two calls going is I've got this little tab down here that says 2. If I click that, it reveals all my list of calls. If I had 3, 4, or 5 calls going at the same time, well, I'd be very busy, but also they'd all be listed down this side of the pane. So from here, I can tap to flip to that call, or go back in there and flip to that call. So that's how simple it is to flip back and forth between your calls. If I want to end one of these calls, I can simply just hit the end button here, and I'll hang up on this particular call. So if I click that, this other call has been disconnected, and it is auto-resumed to the remaining caller. Okay, and just to note, that is different behavior than what the other model phones at your building have. These model phones do not auto-resume to another call. You have to unpause or unhold that caller. But these phones, when you have call waiting, multiple calls going, and you disconnect one of the calls, the other one then becomes the primary call. So I'll hang up on this call now. All right, I'm going to show you another feature, which is our conference server. So our conference server is a modern way to do conference calling. The phones do have an excellent built-in way of doing conference calls directly on the phone. However, most people are extremely comfortable using our conference server now, and since Modern Telecom includes conference server with our subscription, you may as well use it. It is the easier system to use, especially if you've got parents calling in or needing to be transferred in. You don't have to make a whole bunch of phone calls from your phone. You can schedule a conference and then have people be transferred, or you can transfer people in, or anybody in the building can access the conference very easily. So because there's multiple ways to view this screen, this is on the home screen buttons, but then also when I push this button, it brings up the white screen background. I'm just going to show it to you on this white screen background because it appears that the camera picks it up a little better than on the blue background. Again, they do the same thing. Pressing the home button, this is just a widget on a home screen, like if you left stuff on the desktop of your computer versus if you went into a specific menu. So when I click this pencil here, it brings it up on this screen. It actually enlarges it bigger, so it's kind of easier to see, but you don't get as many of the buttons on the screen. So now you have to slide over to see the rest of the buttons. So it ends up taking 2 screens in this mode, versus in here, we're able to cram on a lot more buttons. So this becomes your choice how you want to view your buttons. But so in this mode here, there is one of these buttons that says Conference Server. So if I want to have a conference, let's say at 3 p.m. I've scheduled with a couple of people that I'm going to have this conference. The conference room is available because it's got a green dot next to it. If it was in use by somebody else in the building, it would have a red dot on it. So I'll go ahead and activate the conference server.
Welcome to the conference server. You are now entering the conference. You are the first participant in the conference. Please hold the line.
All right, so now that I've joined the conference, I'm the only one in the conference. There's nobody else here. So supposing there are other people in the building that planned on joining in on this conference from other locations in the building, they would simply be able to go to their phones and they'll notice that the conference button on their phone is red, but if they know that it's a scheduled conference and they're supposed to attend it, they can just walk in. So by pushing that button...
Welcome to the conference server. You are now entering the conference. There is one more participant in the conference.
So now these two people are conferenced together. Now let's suppose a third person is going to be joining, but it's maybe a parent who's going to be calling into reception. So reception then has the job of transferring them into the conference to meet the other participants. So we could simulate that. I'll show you on this phone here. So I'm going to have somebody call into reception. It's a beautiful day. So reception is now going to have to transfer this call into the conference server. So to do that, they're going to push their transfer button. Move the camera down a bit so you can see it. Transfer. And they're going to push their feature buttons. And they're going to look for the conference. There it is. And transfer them into the conference server. Here we go.
Welcome to the conference server. You are now entering the conference. There are 2 more participants in the conference.
All right. So now we have a total of 3 participants in the conference at the same time. One person who called in from an outside line and the receptionist transferred them into the conference, and then we have 2 staff members that were already attending the conference. When participants start to leave the conference, you'll hear a tone which indicates that somebody has left the conference. So I'll hang up the outside caller now. And that tone indicates that somebody left the conference. Now I'll disconnect somebody else. And, well, we didn't hear that one, the tone, because this one I have on receiver so that we wouldn't get a lot of feedback. But at this point, the last person has nobody to talk to, so they can hang up. All right, so that's how the conference server works. Next, I'm going to show you some of the other feature keys that we've programmed here. So we've already covered what the extensions do, we've covered the conference, and we've covered what these parking spots do, and the conference server. I'll slide over to here, and we've got some extra buttons. So what the paging will do is that is for a building-wide page. I'll zoom out just so you can kind of get an appreciation for what this will do, but when I press this button, I will be recording a message to then be broadcast throughout the building after I hang up the phone. And the reason why we have it programmed this way for you is because I am aware of several environments where the phones are within earshot of each other. Notably, the main office has about 3 phones in the same area. So we wouldn't want a situation that the feedback from one person talking in a page would be heard on other pages. So the system will eliminate that possibility by making it so that you record the page, hang up, and then it broadcasts it. So watch this. This is a test page. I'm making a test page. This is a test page. I'm making a test page. There we go. So that's how the paging system works. Phones that should not have paging, you can let me know. I've already deactivated some that I don't think paging would apply to or not be desirable. And then additional phones can be added and grouped into this paging group, or we can have different types of paging groups that, for example, page different floors of a building. So it doesn't have to be a page that hits every single phone. We could divide the paging into groups if we need to, and we would just add additional buttons to this springboard here as appropriate. All right, next. there's this button that says closed, these two ones that say that for closed. So this would be in a situation where the building is going to be closed, let's say for a holiday or the weekend. So the last person leaving, or 5 o'clock, or when we're closing for the weekend, you would tap the closed button.
Night service activated.
So what that has done is the outgoing line, the main line that then calls in for that department, will no longer ring any of the phones. That will just go directly to the voicemail or auto attendant, or however we change things in the future. The point is, phones no longer ring on that line. Or that phone number. If we want to do it for the other phone number, same thing. We can tap the other button. All the phones will indicate this on their screen, so the next person who comes in the morning will notice that there's a red light next to that closed icon, and that is also true for the other model phones in the building. There will be a red indicator letting them know that that is closed, and that's important to note because while that is lit up red, you will not be receiving phone calls on that line until somebody goes ahead and takes it off.
Night service deactivated.
Once the night service has been deactivated, outside lines work again and you can receive calls. Now let's suppose it's just you that don't want to receive calls, so your specific extension. So not necessarily the outside lines, but you don't want your phone to ring for internal calls, people transferring calls to you, or internal extensions. Okay, so you can accomplish what's called do not disturb state on any of these phones by pushing the mute button. So when you push the mute button...
Do not disturb has been turned on.
Alright, the phone was talking over me. But once you've pushed the mute button on the phone, as you can see, there's a red bar up here that has illuminated, and that is indicating that your specific phone extension will not accept phone calls. Everything will be redirected to voicemail, nothing will ring. This is great if you're in a meeting. I think on the home screen, yep, you still have the red bar even on the home screen. On any screen you are on the phone, you'll always have that red do not disturb. So when you're ready to receive calls again, you simply press the mute button again.
Do not disturb has been turned off.
And there you have it. So that is the do not disturb feature for not receiving calls specifically to your extension. Now I'm going to show you how the voicemail works on the phone. So from the springboard, you move over to this side here, and there's an icon for voicemail. You just tap that icon. If you don't have any voicemails, then it's actually going to bring up this status screen, which actually tells you have total and total. So one of them is new voicemails, and the other one is saved voicemails that you've already listened to. But you can still enter the voicemail system even though it's told you don't have any voicemails, just by tapping on this again.
You are calling your mailbox for the first time. To identify your extension, you may record your name. This recording will be used when someone reaches your mailbox or when the auto attendant...
Okay, I've hung up on it at that point. And the reason being is because this is the first time the voicemail box is being initiated. So there's a walkthrough setup process that's just guided by voice. It'll walk you through certain steps of just pressing touch tones to record your name, your personal welcome message, a password if you want to remote access voicemails. So you're free to do all that and just follow the instructions directly on the phone. The only kind of notable extra feature this voicemail system has that a lot of people like that some of the older voicemail systems don't have is the ability to transfer voicemails to other extensions. So while you are listening to your voicemail, if you realize, hey, that's not for me, it would be better suited for somebody else to deal with, you can press the 6 key. And the 6 button has the letter M on it, so that stands for move, so it just helps you remember it. You would push that and then type in the 2-digit extension that you want to move it to. Do not hit the speed dial buttons when you're interfacing with the voicemail system. The voicemail system is a phone call to an off-site server. The voicemails are not actually stored on the phone, so the extension buttons do not function with respect to that. So you would type in the extension number from the phone, and it will then move that voicemail out of your voicemail box and into somebody else's voicemail box, and it'll also send them an email with the voicemail. So that's how the voicemail system works. Another kind of neat thing these phones do is they do video between each other. Now we're going to use this feature down the road to, the main point is to see who is going to be at the front, the doors. When we install the video intercoms there, we'll see who's at the door. But in the meantime, you may find this kind of a nifty feature that when you're basically making a phone call, so I'll just make a phone call to here, 31, and I can select a video call. Now from this phone, we answer. However, to preserve that person's privacy, I'm just going to lift that off the hook so there's no feedback. The video is not initially shown. The other party, actually both parties, need to manually agree. So they first have a conversation about this and say, hey, do you mind turning on your video? And the other person says, yeah, I don't mind if you see what I look like. So you would push video. And on the other person, they have to also accept permission. And if they do, then the video is initiated, and you end up on a two-way video call. To hang up, just lift up this little dial here, and you can hang up. Or you can turn off your video if you've had enough of that. Alright, that pretty much wraps it up. One last thing I'd like to show you on this phone is the reboot procedure. So it is an Android tablet device running phone software, and on occasion it may need to be rebooted if it locks up or becomes sluggish and not very responsive. So you pull this screen down, and see I've just basically yanked it down from the top by rubbing my finger down from the top. Alright, it brings up some options here such as Bluetooth and volume screens and things like this. But what you're looking for is right at the top right is this gear. You click the gear, and now you're into the settings of the Android operating system. So the one you're going to look for is you just scroll down, scroll down, scroll down. There you go. So it's under this basic heading, and it's called Reboot the Phone. Click that. Is it okay to reboot the phone? Hit OK. And there you go. That's a much simpler process than flipping it upside down and yanking out the cords. But yanking out the cord in the back is the same thing. It is just as effective, but if it's going to make a mess of your desk to do so, then feel free to reboot the phone this way. Now when the phone restarts itself, you can't make any phone calls until your name, which appears in the top corner, turns green. So you just wait. This is basically its booting up time, and you'll see how it populates the extensions on the list, but it's not quite ready yet. In fact, there's a red light. I got the camera too zoomed in so you can't see it, but this red light is lit up at the top, which is indicating that it's still booting up, so you need to wait. And okay, the red light's gone off, so that's a good indication. And in a moment or two, the name at the top should turn green. The rest of these extensions will refresh themselves with the green circles or red circles to indicate their status. And then that's the point when the phone is ready to make phone calls. There we go. Okay, so that's what you're watching for, and that's the normal behavior of the phone. So it does take about, I think it was about a minute for it to boot up completely. And the majority of that time is you'll be looking at this screen where your name does not have the green, whoopsies, hitting buttons with my fingers because it's very sensitive. Yeah, so the green circle next to your name. Right up until the moment that comes on, the phone is not ready. And the majority of the time that you're waiting for it to boot up, you're looking at this screen where there's no green circle next to your name. As soon as you see that, then you're ready to start using the phone.